Segregated spaces. Turf shit? Is that turf shit? Sounds turfy. Sounds real turfy.
Some women do not want liberation. Some do not see their oppression at all, or think that they deserve it. Or perhaps they don't care because they see themselves as unaffected by it. The women's liberation movement is for all women, including those who fight every advance of tooth and nail, but at times it can be disheartening to see these women resist so staunchly the idea of changing an unjust world. Instead, they seem to openly accept it and strive to uphold the status quo. We've gone far enough, they say. We've gone too far, they may even argue. In radical feminist circles, you may often see women who turn their back on women's liberation to better serve and be acknowledged by men referred to as handmaidens. This term is often presented with the most blatant examples of misogyny-supporting behavior, but the behavior itself, anti-feminist and patriarchy-supporting, can be found in many women who consider themselves to be feminist as well. What this moniker really refers to is the phenomenon of patriarchal bargaining. Patriarchal bargaining is a tactic where a woman in a misogynistic culture reinforces the notion of men's superiority or conforms to patriarchal demands of her gender in order to get ahead or even just survive. It is a decision to accept gender rules that disadvantage women in exchange for whatever power one can gain from the system. This term was first coined by Turkish author and researcher Deniz Candiyoytan in her 1988 article Bargaining with Patriarchy. At its core, it is a self-preserving practice meant to manipulate the system to one's advantage without disrupting or changing the system in any way. The insecurity and mistrust that leads to this behavior within women is not innate, but rather a result of living in this culture which pressures us to act this way. Andrea Dworkin writes this behavior in Right-Wing Women. I find it best summed up by this quote. Right-wing women have surveyed the world. They find it a dangerous place. They see that work subjects them to more danger from more men. It increases the risk of sexual exploitation. They see that creativity and originality in their kind are ridiculed. They see women thrown out of the circle of male civilization for having ideas, plans, visions, ambitions. They see that traditional marriage means selling to one man, not hundreds, the better deal. They see that the streets are cold, and that the women on them are tired, sick, and bruised. They see that the money they can earn will not make them independent of men, and that they will still have to play the sex games of their kind, at home and at work too. They see no way to make their bodies authentically their own and survive in the world of men. They know too that the left has nothing better to offer. Leftist men also want wives and whores. Leftist men value whores too much and wives too little. Right-wing women are not wrong. They fear that the left, in stressing impersonal sex and promiscuity as values, will make them more vulnerable to male sexual aggression and that they will be despised for not liking it. They are not wrong. Right-wing women see that within the system in which they live, they cannot make their bodies their own, but they can agree to privatize male ownership, keep it one-on-one, as it were. They know that they are valued for their sex organs, and their reproductive capacity, and so they try to up their value, through cooperation, manipulation, conformity, through displays of affection or attempts at friendship, through submission and obedience, and especially through the use of euphemism, femininity, total woman, good, maternal instinct, motherly love. Their desperation is quiet. They hide their bruises of body and heart. They dress carefully and have good manners. They suffer, they love God, they follow the rules. They see that intelligence displayed in a woman is a flaw, that intelligence realized in a woman is a crime. They see the world they live in, and they are not wrong. They use sex and babies to stay valuable because they need a home, food, clothing. They use the traditional intelligence of the female, animal, not human. They do what they have to do to survive. With this in mind, it becomes understandable why a woman might choose to support the idea that she is meant to be oppressed, that because she chooses her one oppressor over a number of them, she might be safe. It is from this way of thinking that women support benevolent sexism, beliefs that sexism, when favorable to women, are acceptable. However, in doing so, women choose to ignore the dangers that men present women as a way of retaining support and validation from that same system. In order to support their worldview, despite a myriad of evidence illustrating the many ways that men oppress and harm women, they must turn a blind eye to those who claim otherwise. More than that, they must violently reject these women to prove that they truly believe in the system they have invested so much into. It relies on cognitive dissonance, a willingness to discard any evidence of male violence and female oppression if it contradicts the world they wish to believe in, wherein women are kind and caring and protected by the men in their lives, and any outliers to this are men who just need a little help because they can't possibly know better.
A really interesting thing about our culture is that we are so obsessed with punishment that it makes us do really irrational things. Okay, like for example, statistically, if you commit a crime and you get caught and you go to prison, when you're released from prison, you are 7% more likely to commit that crime again than if you'd never been caught and sentenced in the first place. That means that literally, if we just got rid of prisons and changed nothing else about society, crime would drop 7%. But you're like, no, we can't do that because we got to punish people. But in reality, what you're doing is you're punishing everybody. You're punishing society too. You're punishing those 7% of people who are more affected because now they're victims of crime than if you've just done nothing at all. And that's the main issue with carceral, that's like prison style punishment. Carceral justice is based on punishing people, not preventing or stopping crime from happening, which means you're not going to see crime rates go down. However, if the alternative is instead of focusing on punishing people when they fuck up, you focus on creating a society where people don't feel the need to fuck up, you're going to reduce crime. That is how crime is reduced in societies. We gotta get the vengeful action movie guy out of our own head though, you know? Revenge is not worth more than safety.
On the other hand, many even seem to believe that women truly are second-class citizens in need of protection by, and to be subservient to, men. It is pretty easy to be annoyed by women like this. After all, surely even they know that what they preach is false. Every woman grows up with the same understanding of traveling in packs, of being mindful of your drinks, of being alone with the man. Of course, we spend this in different ways. We use these rules as a safety net to make us seem so much more different than the women who do get targeted, who are unlucky, and who do get harmed. It's easier to feel self-assured if you believe that you are better prepared than the other women. Of course, believing so often makes it harder to reconcile if something does happen. If we talk openly, it's easy to see that most women have been sexually assaulted or harassed no matter how she behaves, looks, or acts. I'd reckon all, if only because many women wouldn't recognize abuse for what it was, or are unable to come to terms with their own lack of agency. While it is true that women who resist women's liberation are traitors to the cause, it is not their fault for being unable to resist taking power and safety where they feel they can. We fight for women's liberation no matter how much they resist and struggle. Women resist the women's liberation movement because of the discomfort of going against the status quo. It may seem easier to conform than to resist, as one is rewarded for conforming via more discreet oppression, though the oppression never completely abides. The problem is not only in non-political women. When a rad femme addresses a part of our oppression that involves any action on the part of the woman, such as wearing makeup, choice in clothes, marriage, partnership at all, there will be women who respond with what essentially amounts to, if you don't let us do this patriarchy-approved thing, then women won't want to be rad femmes. There is an attempt to water down radical feminism to become more palatable to the masses, to hold women's liberation hostage for the sake of loosening radical feminist ideals. There is a requirement of being self-critical, of being willing to make uncomfortable choices in order to further our goals. Hypothetically, there may be a day where the world is post-patriarchy and makeup could be purely artistic. Het marriage could be a happy, equal union between two people. Men and women could have thriving, healthy sexual relationships. But we do not live in this hypothetical society, and therefore retain the need to question and critique our participation in today's patriarchal structures. Feminism does not conform to your choices to make them worthy or revolutionary actions. You must change your own actions to become feminist, and that is a choice that is meant to be uncomfortable and difficult to do. You do it anyway because the goal of women's liberation is not to be comfortable. It's not just a matter of comfort. It's worth being asked if you're sick today for not wearing makeup or stared at for not shaving. While one might forgive a non-feminist woman for finding a way to survive day to day, a self-declared feminist deserves no quarter for being unable to at least admit to her hypocrisy if she refuses to take action to support her so-called activism. In the end, it comes down to women not wanting to take responsibility for their own role in their own oppression. We can aid the patriarchy in oppressing other women, and even in oppressing ourselves. It can be difficult at times to remember that the women who do this are just as trapped as we are and do not deserve our cruelty for being unaware or unwilling to accept their own oppression. We must stop making excuses for our own behavior and actively strive to change. We must not blame other women for falling for the lie and strive to lift all of us up, because none of us are free until all of us are free. As stated by Dworkin, feminism is hated because the women are hated. Anti-feminism is a direct expression of misogyny. It is the political defense of women hating. We cannot continue to hate ourselves and expect progress, and that includes in hating those who hate themselves. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I'm still sick, so sorry if I sound weird. This topic is one that kind of annoys me because I am a person who follows through on what I say I'm going to do. I started reading radical feminist writings, and then I started volunteering at a rape shelter. I did that. I said, hey, I see something that needs to be fixed. I'm going to change it. I came here and I spend most of my time working with female students and trying to offer them support they're not going to get from their families when it comes to education, because that is a feminist action that has a real world impact. I don't shave. I don't wear makeup. I wear comfortable clothes. I put my actions where my mouth is. I do what I say I'm going to do. And it annoys me so much when many women claim to be radical feminists, couldn't be feminists at all, and they do nothing. Just talk online. Which, I'm not saying that communication's not important, but you're a hypocrite if you're just going to preach it and never actually put anything into action. And then, of course, we see so many women who completely uphold the patriarchy. They cling to it like it's a lifeboat. And I pity those women. I feel sorry for them. I want to help them. Even if they anger me, even if they anger you, it's important to have a distinction between people who supposedly have their eyes open, the feminists who supposedly are feminists, who see the world as it is, who say, yes, this is a problem, and still choose an action, versus the women who are trying their best to survive in a world that is actively hostile and decide that they want to work with the system because that's the only option they see. There's a difference between those two groups of people, and I think it's important to remain critical, not only of ourselves, but of each other in that sense. Because, to be honest, I think the hypocrisy of inaction is worse than someone who has yet to realize all of this stuff, who's yet to open their eyes and doesn't do anything. It's one thing to be ignorant, it's one thing to be a hypocrite. If you're going to be a radical feminist, do something. Support women-held businesses. Help women in your community. I mean, it's not that hard to volunteer even in small ways. Hell, go help people in your neighborhood who need help. Plenty of older women get abandoned by their families when they get older and could use someone to help do chores like cutting the lawn or bringing over food. Help tutor girl children. That's a simple way to do it. Not everyone has to do the hard thing of going to protest or marches or working in a shelter. But we can all do something, be it not shaving, not wearing makeup, dressing comfortably, and being a role model for those in our communities, or actually helping our communities in small ways. I think that especially that's important for people who have the time and the ability to do this. Hell, I've got type 1 diabetes. I'm poor as shit. I'm still doing what I can. I think we all have an obligation to help change the world to be a better place instead of just expecting it to change on its own. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave it in the comment section down below. Feel free to join the Discord server, to join the membership thingy. As stated before, I am poor, but and let me know if you have any suggestions for videos. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.